Hello, my name is Gerardo, and today we're going to talk about assessment and testing. And this is the last section of the subject. So we will be focusing mainly on the principal aspects that we have studied during this time. Let's start with the reasons why should we be practicing testing during our classes. Well, one of the principal things is because we have to measure the performance of our students. Once we have delivered some content, we need to make sure that they really understand it and that they are able to perform or to act to replicate what we have told them. Also, another one that is more related to school policies is for grading. In the majority of places where we work, they usually ask us to have a grade, right? Because the government demands it or because there is an internal way of grading or ranging the school compared to other ones. So this is one of the reasons. It's not the best reason, but it exists, and that's actually one of the key points of having tests in general, at least in the Mexican um, system, educational system. We also need to provide feedback. This is important because once we have studied something, deliver it, and then measure it with a test, we also have to give this feedback to the students for them to know what were the good things they did and also the things that they can improve. Because whenever we do an exam, well, as students or as the person who is responding it, we have to be aware of the things that we need to work on so that next time we can perform it better, right? Also to reinforce understanding, and this is more related to, for instance, a constant testing throughout the whole semester, let's say, so that instead of having global exams, maybe we can have short parts that will tell us in a good moment when something needs to be reclarified. Another reason is for certifications, and this is, for instance, a motivation for people whenever they need to apply to a master or to PhDs or to have a promotion, to go into student exchange, scholarship, etc. Also for training, because when you receive a training, at the end, the people need to know, like, if you really acquired what you were explained. So whenever we attend trainings, usually at the end it can be a strict test, or it can be just like a shallow test, depending on the need of the company that is delivering this training. Also, well, as we said, is a request for some things, and to predict the language performance of people. These last 2 points are kind of interconnected, because, for example, if you apply for a scholarship, the school needs to know that you're gonna have a good level of English, written, spoken, understanding by listening, right? Or reading the papers that you need to, I don't know, read for writing an essay, whatever. So you have to know, they have to know that once you are in school, you will really be capable of facing all these challenges. So the performance in the future, that's one of the key points for certifications to exist. And there are many types of certifications, which we will talk in a little bit. So the next point is make testing more productive. Okay, this means that whenever we have a test, we need to make sure that it's really getting to the point that we want, right? It's not just making a test because the school demands it, but rather that we really can take something from this test as teachers as well as students, and that the test will be meaningful, and that also will improve the teaching and the learning environment. So the first thing to improve it is using bands and scales. And this is what we were talking about before with the certifications. For example, in the IELTS test, when you apply, you receive a degree, a level in which you are placed, right? Or the Cambridge, for instance, if you apply for CAT, PET, first certificate, or even if you are a teacher, for example, you can apply for the teacher training certification, and in there you can also receive a scale of in which level you are located at. Now for TOEFL, for instance, depending if it is the written exam or if it is the one on computer, on the written one they just give you a general score, but on the computer one they give you a score that is related to also a level generally compared to the European framework. So these bands and scales, they can give you a good idea of how is your performance on the mastering of specific skills. Listening, maybe you're capable of really understanding abstract things and then produce from them. Or in writing, you are able to use an extend vocabulary and really put your ideas on paper in an easy way that in an easy way that other people will understand it, no? And so on. You can do the same for the rest of the skills. Also, we need to have some objective items because let's talk about, for instance, the TOEFL IBT test. In these ones, the focus is mainly on production. So when you are facing the listening part, you are presented with different kind of listenings. Some of them will require you to merge reading text, reading with listening, short discussion, and then from there you need to produce it. You need to speak, or you need to answer some questions, or you need to write something. Other ones are, for instance, in the section of reading, there are other parts where they put first a statement, and then they ask you to develop your idea based on that statement. Or you may have a short text from a textbook or from an article, and then you need to develop the antithesis or the thesis of that main subject. So these kind of items, as they are productive, they tend to be subjective, but the test in general is created in a way that this subjectivity is transformed into an objective way of grading it by using scales that basically put appliers into locations that correspond to the level of mastering of the language. Now, the test, as we said, it can be subjective or objective. Also, some tests, for example, they have objective items that are very specific for asking something, like in the case of the first certificate, where they ask you to complete a piece of text. And in there, they're basically analyzing how well you understand the appliance of grammar. Also, when grading, it's important to give a training to the examiners, mostly when it comes to subjective things, because otherwise the whole test can be wrongly graded, and then the actual goal won't be reached. It has to be also related to real situations and to cover affluency of language, in which the appliers can really know if they will be able to face these challenges in a daily life basis. It has to also be integrative, so using language together with the many skills in the way that everything goes correlated. And it's recommended also to use authentic materials, as this is something that we'll be facing during, if you go abroad, you will be exposed to some banners, billboards, newspapers, etc. And also to test the language use um, and performance of the person who is receiving the test. So the language use will help us to really know if the student knows what the language is for and if they can apply it. Basically, it's transferring the grammar into a well contextualized and structured scenario. Now let's go to the next part. Alternative of testing. Oh, sorry, here is alternatives of testing. So we have some varieties. The first one is a portfolio. In here, basically students are asked to deliver some tasks, and they are always capped on a portfolio or in a folder. And at the end of the year, if they have completed all the different tasks, they will present the whole portfolio with the different activities. So it's like a compilation of evidence. Then we also have continuous assessment. This is basically what we discussed at first, the reasons for testing. Once you have a semester, maybe you can give small tests during the period and have students be graded in small chunks rather than having a global exam. So this continuous assessment can be by test, can be by projects, depending on how the teacher wants to use it. Also by having formal presentations. Let's say that if you are merging two subjects, I don't know, you want to work in something of biology plus English language, then students can develop a final presentation about, I don't know, maybe animals in Africa, in South America, and in Russia, or in Australia, no? Or either by countries, by continent, depending. Some real life situation performance. This one is not very common, but some teachers do really use them. So you can take your students to places where they're going to be exposed with natives, and they have to be able to really accomplish some tasks like helping them to get to from one place to another, or give them a tour, or hold a conversation for 5 minutes, etc. Poster sessions, that's kind of similar to projects and presentations. So it's basically having an idea, working on it, and then present the result at the end. Or reflective papers. These ones are also more into the portfolio, let's say the final project of the portfolio. They can be reflective papers of what they studied. Or, for instance, if they are also studying something in the class, maybe at the end of the week, they have to write the things that they learned, the things that were difficult, keeping a diary. So these are different kinds of assessment and testing. And to finish, to conclude, the final conclusion of the unit is that I think test is fundamental, but it has to be well structured. Otherwise, it won't really accomplish the main task, which is to know how the students are doing, if they really acquire the information, and if they are able to transfer that information into real life situations. Because it's not, it doesn't really help if students know the grammar, but when it comes to production of speaking or writing, they aren't able to do it, right? So they have to be able to produce and receive. Also, the test needs to be well structured because otherwise it will be messy for the students, messy at the moment of grading, and it will be a disaster basically. No? Also, we need to find a balance between objectivity and subjectivity. As we said, sometimes it's important to really ask specific things on the grammar, like maybe to know if they work or if they got it. That could be with perhaps a continuous assessment. And then the subjectivity when it comes to production of speaking and on writing, for example. So we need to also be careful when it comes to speaking, to have, or at least to manage some sort of rubric or band or grader, you know, where we can tell the students what they are expected to do, so that they can also know if they receive a grade, what is the meaning of that grade, rather than just say, oh, well, this is what I think that you that you're worthy of. So students really need to know what are the rules of the game. And lastly, the performance and feedback, because when we have an assessment, or when we are assessing, sorry, someone, or when we are delivering tests, we want to know how the other person will react on the use of the language. And also afterwards, we need to give some feedback for the other, for the person to work on those weak gaps, so that they can increase and get better. This is basically my explanation for this unit. I think that in general, the whole unit was great, because it actually gave me a better idea of the different tasks that can be found on certification, for example. So I was comparing like TOEFL, written paper, IBT, Cambridge, IELTS, Duolingo, for instance, now that they also have their exam, and each one of them have a specific structure. So also when we are helping our students to receive a certification, we need to be familiarized with the kind of structure of the exam, because even if they know the language, by having the lack of knowing or being familiarized with the structure of the exam, that can harm them a lot and lose a lot of time trying to figure out how to answer it. So I will recommend to always give some extra sessions ongoing through the structure of the exams, of the certifications. Well, thank you so much. My name is Gerardo, and nice to be here with you in this class, and hopefully see you later. Take care. Bye bye.